I never thought the worst moment of my life would happen at what was supposed to be one of the happiest days for our family. But there I was, sitting at the head table during my stepson's wedding reception, listening to him tell everyone in that crowded ballroom that I wasn't his real dad and never would be. What he didn't expect was for me to stand up during the toasts and reveal the truth that would change everything. Let me start from the beginning. My name is David, and I'm 54 years old. 12 years ago, I married the love of my life, Sarah, who had a 16-year-old son named Marcus from her previous marriage. Marcus's biological father had walked out when he was just 5 years old, leaving Sarah to raise him alone. When I came into their lives, I didn't just marry Sarah. I chose to become Marcus's father in every way that mattered. Those early years weren't easy. Marcus was angry, confused, and dealing with abandonment issues from his biological father. But I was patient. I showed up to every soccer game, helped with homework every night, taught him how to drive, and was there for every milestone. I legally adopted him when he turned 18, with his full consent. We changed his last name to mine. I walked him across the stage at graduation. I thought we had built something real. For years, Marcus called me Dad. Not David, not stepdad, just Dad. I was the one who co-signed his college loans, helped him through his struggles with anxiety and depression, and supported him when he decided to change majors 3 times. I was there when he met Jessica, his now wife, and I was the one who helped him pick out the engagement ring. I thought I was his father in every way that mattered. But something started changing about 2 years ago. Marcus began pulling away. He stopped calling as much, started referring to me as David again instead of Dad, and seemed uncomfortable when I talked about family memories we'd shared. Sarah noticed it too, but we both thought it was just normal young adult growing pains. We were wrong. The first real sign that something was seriously wrong came 6 months ago during wedding planning. Marcus and Jessica were discussing the wedding party, and Marcus mentioned that his real dad would be walking Jessica's mother down the aisle since her father had passed away. Sarah and I exchanged confused looks. When Sarah asked who he meant, Marcus casually said he'd been in touch with his biological father, Robert, for the past year and had invited him to the wedding. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Robert, the man who had abandoned his son and never paid a dime in child support, was suddenly back in the picture. But I tried to be understanding. I told Marcus I was happy he was reconnecting with his biological father and that there was room for both of us in his life. I was trying to be mature about it, even though it hurt. What I didn't know was that Robert had been filling Marcus's head with lies for months. He'd told Marcus that I had stolen him from his real family, that I was just trying to replace him, and that our relationship was artificial. Robert painted himself as the victim, claiming he'd been kept away by Sarah and me, which was completely false. He'd voluntarily signed away his parental rights and hadn't attempted contact for over 15 years. The wedding planning became increasingly awkward. Marcus started excluding me from father-son traditions, saying those were for his real dad now. Robert was doing the father-son dance. Robert was giving the father's blessing speech. Robert was being introduced as the father of the groom. Each decision felt like a knife in my heart, but I kept quiet because I didn't want to ruin Marcus's wedding. Sarah was furious. She couldn't understand how Marcus could be so cruel after everything I'd done for him. We had several heated arguments about it, with Sarah wanting to confront Marcus directly and me trying to keep the peace. I kept telling myself that this was just a phase, that Marcus would come to his senses after the wedding excitement died down. The night before the wedding, we all went to the rehearsal dinner. That's when I got my first real taste of what was coming. During the practice toasts, Marcus stood up and thanked everyone for coming to celebrate his special day. He thanked Sarah for being an amazing mother, Jessica's family for welcoming him, and then he thanked his father Robert for finally being part of his life again. He looked right at me during that speech and added, "I also want to thank David, my mom's husband, for helping out over the years." Helping out? Like I was a family friend who occasionally pitched in, not the man who had raised him for 12 years. The room went quiet. Everyone knew our family history. They knew I was the one who had been Marcus's father figure throughout his entire adolescence and young adulthood. I excused myself and went to the bathroom, where I had to splash cold water on my face to keep from breaking down. This wasn't just about being excluded from wedding traditions anymore. Marcus was actively rewriting our family history in front of everyone we knew. He was erasing 12 years of love, sacrifice, and dedication with a few carefully chosen words. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed thinking about every moment I'd shared with Marcus. Teaching him to throw a football in the backyard. Staying up all night when he had pneumonia. Driving him to job interviews. Celebrating when he got his first apartment. Walking him through his first heartbreak. Helping him study for the LSAT. Every moment felt real to me, but apparently, it meant nothing to him. The wedding day arrived, and I tried to put on a brave face. I watched Robert walk Marcus down the aisle while I sat in the audience like any other guest. I watched Robert straighten Marcus's tie before the ceremony while I stood on the sidelines. I watched them take father-son photos while I was asked to step aside. Each moment chipped away at my heart, but I endured it all for Sarah and for the love I still had for the boy I'd raised. The real humiliation came during the reception. We were all seated at the head table, the wedding party, parents, and close family. The DJ announced that it was time for the father of the groom to give his toast. Robert stood up, clearly having had a few drinks, and began what could only be described as a victory speech. I want to thank everyone for being here to celebrate my son Marcus and his beautiful bride Jessica, Robert began, emphasizing the word my while looking directly at me. It means the world to me to be here for this special day. I know I haven't been around much, but blood is thicker than water and real family always finds its way back together. The room was uncomfortable. People were shifting in their seats and avoiding eye contact with me. Robert continued, getting more emboldened by the minute. Marcus, I'm so proud of the man you've become, and I know your real father is here to witness this moment with you. Again, he looked right at me when he said real father. But then Marcus stood up. My heart hoped for a moment that he would clarify things, that he would acknowledge my role in his life. Instead, he made it worse. So much worse. Thank you, Dad, Marcus said, putting his arm around Robert. I want everyone to know that this man is my real father. Robert Johnson is my dad, and I'm proud to be his son. I know there might be some confusion because David has been around, but I want to be clear about who my real family is. The silence in that room was deafening. 200 people just stared, unsure of how to react. Sarah grabbed my hand under the table, and I could feel her shaking with anger. Jessica looked horrified at what her new husband was doing. But Marcus wasn't done. Some people try to buy their way into families or think they can replace someone's real father, but that's not how it works, Marcus continued, looking directly at me. Blood is blood, and nothing can change that. So I want everyone here to know that Robert Johnson is my father, and I'm grateful he's here to share this day with his real son. That's when something inside me snapped. Not with anger, but with clarity. For months, I'd been trying to understand why Marcus was treating me this way, making excuses for his behavior, and hoping he'd come around. But in that moment, I realized that I deserved better. I deserved to have my truth heard by everyone in that room. I stood up slowly, and the entire room turned to look at me. Marcus's face went pale. He clearly hadn't expected me to respond. Sarah squeezed my hand, not sure what I was about to do. The DJ handed me the microphone without being asked. Even he could sense that something significant was about to happen. Thank you, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I think there are some things that need to be clarified for everyone here tonight, and since we're talking about truth and real family, I'd like to share some facts. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a folder I'd been carrying around for weeks, not sure if I'd ever need it. Inside were documents, receipts, photos, and records that told the real story of the past 12 years. Marcus, you mentioned that blood is blood and that Robert is your real father. That's biologically true. But I think everyone here deserves to know what real fatherhood actually looks like, because it's not about DNA, it's about showing up. I opened the folder and pulled out the first document. This is the court record showing that Robert voluntarily terminated his parental rights in 2009 and stopped paying the court-ordered $400 monthly child support. He owed $47,000 in back support when I married your mother, which was never paid. Marcus's face was getting redder by the minute. Robert had sat down and was staring at his plate. The room was dead silent except for my voice. These are the receipts for your soccer league fees, equipment, and tournament travel for 4 years. $18,000 total. This is the receipt for your car, which I bought and insured for 3 years. $23,000. Here are the college tuition payments I made when your student loans didn't cover everything. $31,000 over 4 years. I was pulling out document after document, and with each one, Marcus was shrinking further into his chair. The wedding guests were transfixed. Nobody was eating, drinking, or even breathing loudly. This is the receipt for your therapy sessions when you were struggling with depression in college. $6,000 over 2 years because you weren't covered under your biological father's insurance. Oh wait, he didn't have insurance to cover you. This is the receipt for the emergency room visit when you broke your arm senior year. $3,400 because, again, no insurance from your real dad. Sarah was crying now, but not from sadness. She was proud of me for finally standing up for myself and for the truth of our family. Jessica looked like she wanted to disappear under the table. Here's the receipt for your engagement ring, the one you used to propose to Jessica. Remember when you came to me panicking because you'd found the perfect ring but didn't have enough saved? I gave you $4,000 without question because I wanted you to be happy. Marcus tried to interrupt. David, please stop. No, Marcus. You wanted everyone to know the truth about real family, so let's tell the whole truth. I pulled out a photograph. This is a picture of your high school graduation. Robert isn't in it because he didn't come. But I'm there and I'm crying because I was so proud of you. This is from your college graduation. Same thing. No, Robert, but there I am, cheering you on. I pulled out more photos. Here's us at your first job interview. I drove 3 hours to help you prepare. Here's us moving you into your apartment. I took 2 days off work to help you get settled. Here's us at the emergency room when you had that panic attack junior year. Robert's phone went straight to voicemail, but I was there in 30 minutes. The room was so quiet you could hear people's hearts beating. Marcus was no longer looking at me. He was staring at his hands, and I could see tears starting to form in his eyes. But here's the most important document of all, I said, pulling out the adoption papers. These are your adoption papers from when you turned 18. You asked me to adopt you. You said you wanted to be my son legally, not just in your heart. You signed these papers of your own free will, and you cried when the judge made it official. I held up the papers so everyone could see them. You changed your name to mine, Marcus. You wanted to be Marcus Anderson, not Marcus Johnson. You told everyone that I was your real dad and that you were proud to be my son. That wasn't fake, Marcus. That wasn't me buying my way into your life. That was you choosing me as your father. By now, Marcus was openly crying. Jessica had her hand on his shoulder, but she was looking at me with what I could only describe as respect and understanding. Robert had completely disappeared from view, slouched so low in his chair he was practically under the table. I want everyone here to understand something, I continued, my voice getting stronger. I never tried to replace anyone. I didn't steal Marcus from his biological father. His biological father abandoned him, and I chose to love him. For 12 years, I chose to be his father every single day. I chose to sacrifice for him, support him, and be there for him when nobody else was. I put all the documents back in the folder and looked directly at Marcus. You have every right to have a relationship with Robert. I never tried to stop that. But don't you ever dismiss 12 years of love, sacrifice, and dedication as just helping out. Don't you dare reduce me to being your mother's husband when I earned the title of your father through actions, not biology. The room was still silent, but I could see people nodding in agreement. Marcus's friends from college, who I'd met many times over the years, were looking at him with disappointment. Jessica's family, who had heard stories about me raising Marcus, were clearly moved by what they'd just heard. I came to this wedding to celebrate your happiness, Marcus. I didn't come here to be humiliated or to watch someone else take credit for raising the man you've become. I came here because I love you, despite how you've been treating me. But I won't stand by and let you rewrite history or let people think that 12 years of my life meant nothing. I handed the microphone back to the DJ and sat down. The silence stretched for what felt like hours, but was probably only 30 seconds. Then, slowly, Marcus stood up. His face was red and streaked with tears. He walked around the table to where I was sitting. "Dad," he said, his voice breaking on the word. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." He broke down completely, and despite everything that had happened, my first instinct was still to comfort him. I stood up and hugged him while he sobbed against my shoulder. "I don't know what I was thinking," he whispered through his tears. Robert got in my head and made me think. "I don't know what I was thinking. You're my dad. You've always been my dad. I'm so sorry." The room erupted in applause. Not celebration applause, but the kind of emotional applause you give when something broken gets fixed in front of your eyes. Jessica was crying too, and she came over to hug both of us. "I'm so sorry, David," she said. "I tried to talk to him about this, but he wouldn't listen." What you just did, that took incredible strength, and Marcus needed to hear all of that. Robert had quietly slipped out during our reunion. Nobody noticed him leave, and honestly, nobody cared. His 15 minutes of stolen glory were over, and the truth had won out. The rest of the reception was completely different. Marcus made sure to include me in the father-son dance, splitting it between a song for me and a song for Sarah. During the bouquet toss, he grabbed the microphone and made a public apology, thanking me for being his real father and for loving him unconditionally, even when he didn't deserve it. But the most meaningful moment came near the end of the night. Marcus pulled me aside and asked if I still had the adoption papers with me. When I said yes, he asked me to bring them out again. In front of the remaining guests, he held up those papers and said, "This is the most important document in my life. This is when David Anderson became my father and I became his son. Not because we had to, but because we chose each other. That's what real family is." The months that followed were a healing process for our family. Marcus cut contact with Robert after learning the full extent of his lies and manipulation. Robert had told Marcus that I'd prevented him from being involved over the years, that I'd turned Sarah against him, and that I was trying to erase his biological father from his life. None of it was true, but Robert was skilled at playing the victim and making Marcus feel guilty for having a good relationship with me. Marcus and I went to several therapy sessions together to work through the hurt and rebuild our relationship. He learned about the concept of parental alienation and realized that Robert had been using classic manipulation tactics to drive a wedge between us. The therapist helped Marcus understand that it was possible to acknowledge his biological father without diminishing the relationship we'd built. Jessica became one of my strongest supporters during this process. She'd been horrified by Marcus's behavior at the wedding and had actually been considering whether she'd made the right choice in marrying him. Seeing him take responsibility, make amends, and commit to repairing our relationship convinced her that the man she'd fallen in love with was still there underneath the confusion and manipulation. About 6 months after the wedding, Marcus and Jessica asked Sarah and me to join them for dinner. During that dinner, Marcus presented me with a gift that brought me to tears. It was a photo album titled My Real Dad, filled with pictures from our 12 years together. Every milestone, every achievement, every moment of joy and struggle we'd shared was documented in those pages. On the last page was a handwritten letter from Marcus that said, "Dad, I know I can't undo the hurt I caused you, but I want you to know that every good thing about me came from your love and guidance. You didn't just raise me, you saved me. You showed me what it means to be a man, a husband, and someday a father. I am proud to be your son, and I hope I can make you proud to be my dad." A year later, Jessica got pregnant with their first child. When they found out it was a boy, they asked if they could name him David Jr. When little DJ was born, Marcus asked me to be in the delivery room because he wanted his son's first sight to be of both his father and his grandfather. The wedding toast that changed everything taught our family a valuable lesson about truth, manipulation, and the real meaning of family. It showed us that sometimes you have to fight for your relationships, even when it's uncomfortable. It proved that real love can survive betrayal and manipulation if both people are willing to do the work to repair it. Looking back, I'm grateful that Marcus went through that phase, as painful as it was. It forced us to examine our relationship and ultimately made it stronger. We no longer take each other for granted, and Marcus has become one of my most vocal advocates. When people ask him about his family, he's quick to clarify that biology doesn't determine parenthood. Love, sacrifice, and commitment do. Robert never attempted to contact Marcus again after the wedding. We heard through mutual acquaintances that he'd moved to another state and was attempting to reconnect with another child he'd abandoned years earlier. It seemed that manipulating his way back into children's lives was a pattern for him, but fortunately, Marcus was strong enough to see through it once the truth was revealed. The lesson I learned from this experience is that sometimes love means standing up for yourself and demanding that your sacrifices be acknowledged. For years, I'd been content to love Marcus quietly and let him define our relationship on his terms. But there comes a point where you have to advocate for the truth, even when it's difficult and uncomfortable. That wedding toast changed our family forever, but not in the way Marcus had planned. Instead of elevating his biological father and diminishing me, it revealed the truth about real parenthood and brought our family closer together. Sometimes the most painful moments lead to the greatest growth, and our family is living proof of that truth. Today, Marcus and I have a stronger relationship than we've ever had. We talk regularly, spend time together, and he frequently asks for my advice on everything from career decisions to parenting challenges. Jessica has become like a daughter to me, and little DJ is the light of my life. Our family learned that real love can survive anything, including betrayal and manipulation, as long as both people are committed to truth and healing. So if you're in a similar situation, if someone is trying to diminish your role in a family or rewrite the history of your relationships, don't be afraid to stand up for the truth. Document your love, keep records of your sacrifices, and don't let anyone convince you that your contributions don't matter. Real family isn't about biology. It's about showing up, day after day, year after year, with love, support, and commitment. And sometimes, when someone tries to erase your importance, the best response is simply to tell the truth and let the facts speak for themselves. That's exactly what I did at Marcus's wedding, and it made all the difference in the world.